I guess it is time, almost time to stop pretending. The Most High had a duel, a showdown. He was challenged to it. Was this when he divided the nations? Did they have God-like power? They were created Elohim. I'm talking about the council in heaven. Elohim, created in the image of the rock of our salvation. Did they have power? I think we'll find out. Evidently, they did. Until they were cast down, and yet still. So I had to find those remains. If these gods were created in the image of the Elohim who became the rock of our salvation, and we are living stones to be fit into the rock, there had to be the remains, because those Elohim were told they were going to die like men, and they did in Noah's flood. That's where I'm at today. I had to find the remains of those first creation, whom were made in the image of the rock of our salvation. I also asked a question. We'll see. Is there lanolin in linen? I knew there wasn't, but I wanted to find out what that computer would say. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair, honest, and non-violent way. Hey, look at that. It's the thing. Now I can show some videos. Or to show some pictures. Got any new ones? I think I only have a couple. Let's see. There is no pure lanolin. Pure linen does not contain lanolin. What is lanolin? Wax secreted by sheep's sebaceous glands. It's an oily thing. You got to have it. Another thing, just in the middle of nowhere. Another screenshot. Students who are homeless children and youths, students who are in a foster care or are aging out of foster care systems, or other disconnected students. They're provided year-round counseling, summer intensive math and science training. That's that that's that red t-shirt I was wearing today. Upward bound math and science. We'll touch on it. Why was it created? When was it created? Your love is an abyss for my heart to eclipse. It's an old rock and roll song. I like that line. Your love is an abyss. And if you're trying to please Satan like the world is, it's an abyss. You'll never succeed, because it's not true love. It's not true love. We'll hopefully make some sense of this as we go through and see what we got going here on our situation today. So you got my math and science upward bound anniversary STEM program. What?
But by the Central Middle Ages, it was down to 10,000. As I know I've said in other episodes, if you have a mental picture of Rome in the Central Middle Ages, you need to think of 1% of the previous sized population living amongst splendid ruins, right? So Europe is
1%. The Rome, as they found it, had about 10,000 people, but with the close vicinity, evidence of up to 1 million people lived there at one time, and then they didn't. And then there was the Renaissance art that showed it as, hey, look, Rome was full of a bunch of white people who loved white gods.
overwhelmingly rural. But now we've got some cities of 100,000 inhabitants in Italy by the 13th century, and a number of others like Genoa, Bologna, and Verona had more than 50,000 inhabitants.
And is this unique to Italy? Is there something special going on here?
Yes, it is, well, nearly unique. There were growing cities in the Rhineland and in the Netherlands, but Italy is, fairly unique in this respect.
It's because they're so confused about, how come the paintings of how did an angel end up looking like this? Unbelievable.
Softer still, you can move on to the gigging mill. To soften the fabric further, say for a nice soft blanket, you'd run it through this gigging mill. It uses racks of natural teasel heads. The teasel heads, which come straight from plants, are covered with short, sharp spines that are run against the fabric, pulling.
Oh. This is a really
Close to the skin as possible to get the longest fibers and also to remove the entire fleece in one piece. You're paid by the quality of the fleece, which is how many pieces it's in, how long the fibers are.
Look at the sheep. They'll just sit there. You got to soak it in here.
So first we have to clean up the wool, and that's done in the shed out back in these two large iron cauldrons. These cauldrons were filled with water from the adjacent well. Lye was added, made from wood ash. Then the raw fleeces were soaked and gently agitated to remove many of the contaminants from the wool. For good or bad, it also removed the lanolin.
The good or the bad, it also had to remove the lanolin. That really stuck to me.
In 1839,
it's like looking in a
Walter
mirror.
L. Watkins moved to Missouri and created the Bethany Plantation. The plantation grew gradually over the next couple decades, considered to be skilled labor.
Is it off?
They were housed on site.
I might have accidentally hit the... No, I can't understand why that's not playing that volume. Because I can see that my volume is working.
Including in the old octagonal school,
house,
which closed down in
they found this and they had
There's a 65 horsepower steam
I
engine.
heard it earlier.
Details on this engine are a little vague, since the history on the place was written by someone who knows woolen mills, but maybe isn't quite so good at steam engines. Still, let's take a look. Steam was provided by this MUDFLOOD boiler, which was, in 1859, he built the mill here to produce wool yarn and cloth for sale in his store, which was located at the front of the mill. While some of the mill workers were essentially unskilled labor, many, including those working the carding, spinning, and weaving equipment, were actually considered to be skilled labor. They were housed.
People needed wool. The Bible had wool. Prohibitions, don't mix wool and linen. They were using steam power in the 1830s to do this, so they didn't have to cut it by hand. They say they found this. They don't know where this came from. They don't know. They don't care. Maybe it was from a railroad. They salvaged it.
Steamboats on the Missouri River tended to have a very short life, averaging only around 5 years or so. So assuming it somehow didn't explode when the riverboat sank, that'd be a good source of steam.
Look at how well built that is while he's talking about it, Flues, you just got to keep it running. It worked for a long time. They got to get the wool for the world.
Keep that in mind. It didn't fail explosively the first time when that flue leak developed, but that wasn't the last failure for this boiler. It'll become really important to the mill later on. Looking across the boiler, we see the water glass. The water glass ensures the water level.
So somebody retrofitted a old brick building at some point in history, and they were able to produce a heck of a lot of product that is very labor intensive, and it had to have the lanolin added back in.
So now you take this nice, clean white wool that we've just been working on for hours, and you throw it all on the floor up against that nasty black stained wall.
And you use lard to because otherwise it won't work. Look at the production of this
Before you can do anything
1830s. And this was doing the wool for the world.
more with the wool,
The new
you need to
world.
get all the fibers lined up nice and straight. This is the job of the carding machines. Watkins Mill runs all the wool through 3 separate carding machines, and they have several sets of 3 here. Older carding mills would typically just have one machine to produce bats or flat mats.
Look at how many spindles they have. And when you see the,
Just the first of 3
somebody
carding
had to do
operations
it.
here.
Somebody found
Next,
it.
you take several of these bats,
They trained
stacked on
people.
top of each other, and feed them into the second machine called.
Look at these guys. Somebody was doing this 10 hours a day.
As the wool is pulled away from your hand, the spinning spindle twists it into yarn or thread. You adjust how thick or tight the yarn or thread is by how fast or slow you move away from it.
It's all this is how they did it until recently. But they had these machines.
Eventually, you're either out of roving or your bobbin's full, hopefully both at the same time. Then, unless you're selling thread, it's time to move on to the twister. This is the twister, or twisting machine, or twister frame. It takes the bobbins from the spinning jack and twists multiple threads together into a larger yarn or thread. Here at Watkins Mill, they have 2 of what they claim are only 4 surviving twisting machines from this era.
How long was it? 1,000 years ago? Was it 1,000 years ago? Because this is insane. Look, they've dyed all. They've shown you. Oh, it's so easy back in the 1830s. Just shave the sheep, and and we'll process the wool. Okay, they showed a little spinning thing, and now they've got these everywhere. You can do a lot of clothes really fast to send it out. And where do you get all of these highly trained workers? Because hold on to your pants. Here comes a description of some highly trained workers who are glad to have a job.
From the twister, the yarn feeds directly into this large wheel called the skein wheel. If you're using it in-house, you'd probably just go until you've gone through the entire bobbin. But if you're selling yarn, you'd stop at the desired length, cut it, and using the skeiner, tie the yarn into a loose knot ready for sale. If you're planning to weave it here, you'd instead move to the warp dresser. This machine is to help set up the looms for operation. Loading spools of thread from the...
You just jump from mom and dad making a pair of pants to all of a sudden we have a Watkins Mill making it for decades.
Spinning machine.
For
the thread
everybody.
Is fed up through the frame and connected to the wheel at the...
Because once you started the thing of I need uniforms that all have to be the same, you will go through any length to be able to say, I'll make money off it. It's quantity and quality.
Back.
Hold on to this.
You spin as much thread as you need to onto that wheel, depending on how much fabric you want to make, and you cut all the threads at that length. You even have a gauge to tell just how much you've wound. These threads are the warp threads, which run from the back to the front of the loom, the full length
The
of
loom.
point, to help stiffen and protect the threads from the high tension and abuse of the upcoming weaving process. Now let's move over to the loom to see how it all comes together. So this video is made possible thanks to the generosity of people helping out here on YouTube with super thanks or through memberships at patreon.com. Large vats were filled with stale human urine collected from
Whoa. Okay, I wanted you to hear that. Because we have these buildings that they didn't know who built them, where they came from, why there weren't any potties. And even in the reset time, there were people that say, I need your pee-pee, I'll pay you for it, because the fancy clothes of the wool.
To soften it, you first feed it into this rotary fulling mill. You'd load this up with soap and boiling water and with your freshly woven fabric. The fabric then runs between the horizontal drums and under the vertical cylinders, which pound up and down, until it's compacted and softened into something you'd be much happier to wear. Before mechanical fulling mills were invented, they did still have to use a fulling process for wool fabrics, but it wasn't quite so clean. Large vats were filled with stale human urine collected from around town. Not a job I'd want, but not the worst. The newly woven fabric was then soaked in these vats, and an even less desirable job, people jumped in with bare feet and legs and stomped around in these vats for hours, accomplishing the same thing as the newer fulling mills. Regardless of the technique, though, once fulled, if you want something softer still, you can move on to the gigging mill. To soften the fabric further, say for a nice soft blanket, you'd run it through this gigging mill. It uses racks of
But he loved his wife, so he wanted to walk around in the pee-pee all day, and nobody cared. Nobody judged him. The T-shirt I'm wearing, Equal Opportunity Act of 1964, they needed it for the STEM pathways. That was developed in the 1958 Educational Act that brought you DARPA, NASA, and STEM, one of the projects, I've been familiar with for some time. And, 1972, when they finally came up with the idea for the petrodollar, how they're going to crash the computers in 2038. Not a big deal. Just something I got the T-shirt for free. Like I got a Honda lawnmower for free. What?
Second World War gave radio talks about Christianity.
In these talks, I've had to say a good deal about prayer, the whole idea of prayer. God has infinite leisure to spare for each one of us. We've learned how unsympathetic, patronizing, charitable.
This guy's video is that's called vocal fry. The way C.S. Lewis is speaking, that's not really a British accent. That's him. So, he's choosing to talk in a way.
People often are. When Christ died, he died for you individually.
As far as I'm aware, nobody complained about any of this.
Oh, what about presenting me to the bride?
Why are you talking like that?
I am Rebecca's favorite cousin.
Nobody actually talks like this. You choose to talk like this, and today I chose to talk like this.
Too bad.
Pretty annoying, isn't it?
There's a bit of malice in your soul toward me, isn't there?
It's an affectation.
And I think you're behaving splendidly over all this.
That annoying teenagers and rich people use to sound like they don't give a shit.
You've grown up a bit since I last saw you.
And you don't look like a teenager.
Oh, well, perhaps you're right.
Knock it off.
You're rather afraid that somebody might come down and carry you off.
That's an excellent question to ask yourself in your actual voice.
Pity, just we're getting on so nicely. Toodaloo.
Wow.
Bond. James Bond.
Why are you talking like that? It's an affectation. Pretty annoying, isn't it?
And people who dislike teens and can't.
So they're, I guess this is what it's supposed to sound like. Are you doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't want to get shot.
What are some of the reasons we need to still use them? What's an example of a risk that you might incur if you were on public Wi-Fi?
The romantic ballet period, where the gender roles of ballet kind of diverged. Technique-wise, they're just very different skill sets. There are just some things due to biology that men can do that females can't athletically.
And here is an ad for Airbnb from over a decade ago.
I'm staying here for the weekend. I can book from anywhere. Guests and hosts can leave reviews for each other. You can read reviews left by previous guests. Treat myself to something.
Here, lanolin is in nature. It protects the wool in the skin. Very important. It's not in linen. You don't mix wool and linen. In some cases, if you're going into the temple, consists of sterile esters. Wow, 20,000 esters present, still identifying them up to 1986, but I believe we're supposed to trust them on everything. Lanolin, in case you never heard of it, you got to have lanolin. You need linen. Look at that. You know, pure linen is in the future of those who are called, chosen, and faithful. You're going to be wearing that pure linen or else. Wow, what is that? That's a unopened rolls of linen. That's a bag of white linen. Huh. Linen has been a favorite for a while, and I can see why. Okay. Anyway, I'm talking about different gods and the power of these different things. Most High had some dual showdown. Let's look at this here. Go up, Baldy. Go away, Baldy. I looked at that today. I was trying to peel more out of it. I don't know if I got there or not. Mock. They will mock, scoff, disdain, disparage, ridicule. There you go. In Ezekiel 16, hast not been a harlot in that thou scornest hire. Yeah, they were giving it away. They were giving it away. Far from thee shall mock thee. Ezekiel 22, and they shall mock at King, scoff. So when they were really making fun of Elisha, that was the deal on that. That was a late edition, something I looked up myself. I can't believe this. In Lake County, in Minnesota, in 1888, they decided they needed to build this for a town of like 300. Maybe 25 people live there. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many people live there. They don't even want to list it. I think it's a ghost town, 1906. It's another one of those Queen Anne style courthouses. How did I get here? Did I just pop onto it? Want to look at it? It's in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. Finland, Minnesota. It's a ghost town. Used to have, population of 195. It was big. Again, in the middle of nowhere, Beaver Bay, Crystal Bay. That was interesting. I had to look at Finland. Made me want to look it up. I saw a video about out of the way places. I looked at supersonic low altitude missiles, something that they conceived in 1995 and never worked out. Never worked out. They never even made a prototype. Spent 20 years, 9 years, then canceled the project. Was a dream come true. think, let's see here. Now I want to look at Pluto. This is getting more into, and anybody that's stuck around, thank you. Glad you can hear me. No problems on that. For those of us who have seen the Dr. Heiser and know possibly two creations, there's something weird going on. There was a council in heaven. There were multiple Elohims. Christ was the only creator Elohim. But to put into perspective what was going on, as I'm going to be getting into hard the Bible verse in Daniel, where the Gabriel, I believe, shows up and just is like, I'm here to tell you you're doing a good job, Daniel, and you've got this message and you've got to get it out, but keep part of it sealed. It took me 21 days fighting the prince of the principality of Persia to get here to give you that message. It would have taken longer if the God or the angel Michael of this area didn't help me. But I got to fight my way back to God right now. You got it from here, Daniel. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of Elohim. There was a reason they hung on to Pluto. I mean Zeus. I mean the guy that did the Hades thing. They were real gods. He divided the nations. He put a god over them. They had servants. This was real. They built real fucking buildings. People found them later. This is the reset, man. You're not doing it right. You're going down the path of why did it end then? If the Bible was clear, oh, it ended because there was the great falling away. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15, all of Asia has departed me. Well, that's where the letters to Revelation were written. It was a big falling away. Jews fall away, so did the Gentiles. It was a very narrow road. But there was a lot going on of hints in the Bible. Oh, we could tell he said some of those standing there when he came back. Right. He also said why they fell away. People were trying to force other people to go back and worship on the Sabbath, to listen to the Kabbalistic, Talmudic laws of, oh no, we've got to keep circumcising and the nonsense. We've got to keep tracing genealogies. We've got to worship angels. Those things were warned about. That's what we're doing today. And that's why I've got this little Bible study pulled up for you here. Now, Pluto. It was a big deal. I mean, they had the whole Attic calendar, the 12-month, more or less equivalent to June. But don't throw up. I'm going to go kind of fast. Look at this. This is a big website. It goes, what there really were gods. I don't think they were all white, but he made them male and female and gave them some sort of dominion. Trying not to sound like a vocal fry where I'll just fade off at the end of my sentence and go like, you know what I mean? Was that loving husband, a stern ruler and a loving husband. Pluto used to be venerated, and then he was turned into Hades, who kidnapped Persephone, raped her and kept her. So there's different gods and different legends. I wonder what they're trying to hide there. No, somebody just took a pickaxe and said, this is taking too long. I am so tired of it. The horn of abundance. There is a Prosperina. Well, that's not really that's been on the dark side for an oil painting for me. All right, we got that. Project Pluto. This was where they were going to use that failed experimental engine with the powered ramjet, the first cruise missile. one of those ones that's supposed to read the topography and stay right on board. I tried not to get lost in the details. Just a way to spend money. I was kind of thinking it might have been one line of sight, but it was, I couldn't get that proven from it. Pretty sure after this, it's going to be mostly BIBLE. Now, when you straight up ask questions, but this is the meat of the situation. We're talking about the abomination of desolation. We're talking about, the sacrifices in the time periods. Why Dr. Heiser, the Seventh-day Adventist, the Zionist, this is Satan's trick from the very beginning, was because, let me just be blunt with you, the person that can walk to gold, because I know that we are living stones to be fit into the body of Christ if we are one called, two chosen, three faithful. The first creation in Genesis was of those people to serve the Elohims and their other gods in a spirit type dimension, who were told in Psalm 82 would die like men, because this was a saint. You say you can do better than Jesus? He'll take the Jews, the worst ones, and he'll still raise up a David through whom he will provide himself as a sacrifice. All they had going was their own God. They knew what they knew. They told what they saw. And later on, we're still dealing with it. Instead of waiting for someone to say, here's how you should read Revelation 20, basing it on Christ is a rock and we're living stones. That would be me, Salt Paco. I brought that to the party. There was already an existing reason of how they taught the abomination of desolation. It was all based on the globe. It was all based on the added 1,000 years. It was all based on, you had to trust the history of Constantinople, of Rome, that the rest of the golden age that was ruled with a rod of iron would have accepted Trinitarian beliefs of a Roman Catholic Church, call them brothers in Christ, who, if they caught you in their territory and you didn't believe in their Trinity, would skin you alive, it hurts, and then burn you slowly, because the idea was to make you suffer as long as you could, because they were doing it for Jesus, to show the people, you must believe the truth of the Trinity or we'll do this to you, because we preach the God of love. No, that's the lie. And the end time prophet is telling you that's the lie. It's the Trinity. They have exposed some of the lie, but that's not telling the whole truth. Oh, it's a flat earth nation. Thanks, Seventh-day Adventists. We could have figured that out without you. We've got it now. And here's the gods we serve. Is it any wonder it's hard? They were Elohim. They had power. The spirit world, until they're all cast down and this is finished, still has immense power. We're going to go through some of those scriptures right now. And if at 6 o'clock tonight, Mountain Time, you get to see JT Joe Loves JC, he's going to have on demon chasers and others talking about how they do just walk into that party and start casting out demons because they speak in tongues and they believe in the book of Enoch. They're being played. This is not how the abomination is taught.
Into slavery. And he issued decrees forbidding circumcision and requiring Jews to sacrifice to pagan gods and eat pig meat. What Antiochus did certainly qualifies as an abomination.
Yeah, but it's not the abomination that makes desolate. Not every stone was unturned. And what does it happen in Revelation 12? It's the end. There are no more ever sacrifices. So you don't sacrifice a pig, which is based on apocryphal books. None of this Antichicus 4 is in scripture. It is all in your precious books like Enoch, Maccabees. It's in 1st and 2nd Maccabees. It's all extra biblical, written at the time of Constantine, propped up by Josephus. It's the scam.
But still, 200 years later, Jesus spoke of Daniel's prophecy as still yet to be fulfilled. The question then becomes, when, after Jesus' day, was the abomination of desolation prophecy fulfilled? Or are we still waiting for a fulfillment? We take the futurist view, which sees the abomination of desolation prophecy as still future.
They saw it as future. Some of them that were listening to him would still be alive, like John, who was taking care of his adopted mother. She was born a virgin. He was born a virgin. She was a virgin. You know what I mean? So it's right there.
In our view, Jesus was referring to the Antichrist, who
What?
in the end times will establish a covenant with Israel for 7 years.
No. The abomination of desolation happens when every stone is upturned. A person sits down and says that he is the God that owns that city now. That temple can no longer be used until it is blessed again. That is when the daily sacrifices are taken away. That's the phrase you'll look for. But the Seventh-day Adventists, who probably made this through, got answers, they all Zionists. It's
And speak of the
craziness.
abomination that causes desolation, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration, and that horrible thing. The Amplified Bible adds the note that the abomination of desolation is the appalling sacrilege that astonishes and...
Let's see here. The abomination of desolation is very important because from that time, when the regular burnt offering is taken away, this is part and parcel of what makes the abomination desolate. The desolation is the burnt offerings being taken away, and no longer can there ever again be a Jewish offering for sacrifice. They'll never have another chance for forgiveness. The blood of Christ is on their hands and their children, because that's all that's left. It was like 40 years later, 70 AD, is going to be, that is it. Let his blood be on our children's hands. Deal. You got it. He's coming back in that generation. They all go in with the 1,260. It's this 1,290 is all part of the same thing. There's a break. After the abomination that makes desolate is set up, there will be 1,335 days. But there's a break. 1,290. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1335, because none of this information about the golden age past would have been in play until 2015, when the Lord showed me, and I started a website called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past, and started what I called Pretamillennialism. The millennium is over. Yeah, it's only that new. but it's all been planned for. That doesn't mean other people weren't saved. The veil wasn't lifted. There were Gentiles that were saved in the time of Moses, probably because it says you're going to be judged by what's written on your heart, and some will be either accused or excused because they did what was pleasing. It's a long, hard, complicated book. We've got some verses to go over. We've got Daniel to come back to. I guess I'm going to just go through them in order. I was looking at a very common word about time. Days. In that day. Yom. It's used forever. It's also used in Genesis 7:4, 40 days. Look at that, 317, 317. That's not even close, right? So there's a lot of, looking into things that we're going to have to do. There's 70 weeks decreed. Okay, that's 49. 490 about your people, your city. Finish the transgression. 62 weeks and anointed. Well, we know who that is. Cut off. The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Its end shall come with a flood, and to the end there shall be war. Desolations are decreed. That's not the abomination of desolation. And he will make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of a week he shall put an end to the sacrifice and the offering. On the wing of abomination shall come one who makes desolate. That's the abomination of desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. Well, that would be Revelation 19. And then he gets put into the abyss for 1,000 years. There's a 1,000-year reign. I was all over the place. But I stopped where I stopped. Here, look at one in Ezekiel 4:9. Into a single vessel. Laying on your side for the... You want to read it? Do you habla the Inglés? Here it is in the English Standard. You take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, that's your Elijah bread, emmer, and put them into a single vessel and make your bread for them. During the number of days that you lie on your side, 390 days shall you eat it. You eat it by weight. And these are these 390 days, 1 year for each day. It's how it's symbolized. And then he has to turn over and do it for 40. I will do this that they may lack bread and water and look at one another in dismay and rot away. I've heard of flesh-eating diseases and things like that, but the day-year period doesn't work for the time, and half a time. You can't say, well, that's the 1260, so that means 1260 years, which is what Ellen White did. I am requiring you to bear Israel's sin for 390 days, 1 day for each year of their sin. And it doesn't matter that Judah only did it for 40 years. That's still some sinning right in the heart of Jerusalem. That's bringing the wrath of Nebuchadnezzar, who for that brief time was ordained by God to get the job done, ordained in the way that's referred to as anointed. We have the principle. They don't. It's not Antiochus. It's not the Seventh-day Adventists. How rough of a period is this? And the prince of the kingdom of Persia. They're not talking about Esther's wife, Esther's husband, Xerxes. This is a spiritual thing. We should look at the whole. Let's start at around Daniel 10, verse 10. And behold, the hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, I'm assuming he means Michael the archangel, one of the chief princes, came to help me. For I was left there with the kings of Persia and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is for days yet to come. And I really believe, I don't know if anybody studied days harder than I did yesterday between noon and 4. But I'm not saying that they haven't studied it harder than me in their life, but I was all over it for a while there. I don't know the times exactly. Very important stuff. This is a spiritual being. 21 days is a long time, but it's important. They are going to think. They, right now, think they're winning. And they're going to think they're winning until fire comes down and rescues a remnant. One more time. Daniel 11:31. Forces from him shall appear and profane the temple and fortress, and shall take away the regular burnt offering. In chapters 11 of Daniel, chapters 12 of Daniel, who we're told by Christ Jesus, our God, the Father, in Matthew 24, the secret to understanding the abomination or desolation are in Daniel. I have now proving it to you. We've got it. It's not Antiochus. It can't be. This is a joke, a medieval joke. The abomination of desolation in Wikipedia, of course, they're going to point you to the wrong answer. Their day-year period. It's all Seventh-day Adventist. Without the globe, without us finding out that they added the 1,000 years, and then the Lord smacking me down saying, dummy, that was also coinciding with the 1,000-year reign of Christ. They added that. Wake up, or else. And I was like, or else what? And it almost seemed like, or else you're going to, I'll just kill you right now and not a happy way, because I've had two visions. They were 35 years apart. I'm not a charismatic. I can't stand that stuff. I think it's all fake. But I did. I saw the light. And the first time it was, oh, I'm in a happy bubble. Jesus wants me to believe everything he said in the Bible and prove it's true. Wow, it took a long time. And the rocks were crying out. And then when that happened, well, right before that happened, I had this second vision of the light behind me. Of all of a sudden, it's like, wasn't happy. I wasn't that guy that was like, here I am, said me. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I thought we had a deal. And he was like, no, we got this whole other deal going now. Your million gone, your wife and family gone. This new mission, priority number one. And I thank God for it. It's a lot of responsibility, but the stones cried out, and here we are. There is no other answer. It's not the Seventh-day Adventists. It is the fact that this is a powerful spiritual world that we are barely understanding. And when, I came to this school in the border of southern Colorado and New Mexico, and the Zorro Ranch is here, and then when I flippantly was going like, I'm going to get to the bottom of that Epstein thing. It's no wonder they almost killed me. I was thrown in jail. I almost died in an accident. To come to the place where I am right now of this is where God wants me. This is the time. But there's no more messing around. This is all about the rocks crying out because the theology is finished. This is only going back and referring to what I have already shown to be true. You're not going to get anything new from Jason, Jack, or Theron and Bethany. Although I have a lot more hope for Theron and Bethany because Bethany's family. 6 generations at Wheaton, although that's obviously was a Jesuit Freemason plant, the people that they brought with them were not. And that is, so there's a big difference. There's something going on. Where are you going to fall down on right now? Is this a joke to you? You're going to click off now and then go watch MUDFLOOD University and gee whiz, I don't know? If you're called, chosen, and faithful, you'll be back. Because there isn't a movement. This is the theology you love. And the fact that I don't like the Trinity and I want women in submission wearing head coverings, well, that's almost too much for even the most macho tattooed biker of the day. They ain't going down that road. They ain't going to fight mama. Because that's what we're ruled by women and children, and it's DEI. There's women preaching in the church and people don't care. That's the big deal. That's what it is. More than giving all your money to God is telling your wife, I'm giving my money to God. That's the shame. That's the dividing line. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past. The mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else because we're proving we're called, chosen, trying to die faithful, because that way we know we made it. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamain. Adios, amigos, from the border of southern Colorado and New Mexico. That is how I like to say goodbye.